Okay, let's go to the third video of this series. And so now that we've looked at computer components and we understand what's going on, let's go and open Python. I'm going to minimize this. We're going to start by opening it in our terminal, right? We're going to go to terminal and Joop. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. And if we type Python, it's going to open it for us. And so now this is the Python shell, basically, and I can write commands here. Last time we defined computers by things that are able to do computations for us. So let's start with doing some computations in our Python shell. So a good example of it is going to be 2 plus 3, right? And 2 plus 3 gives you 5, obviously. It's a regular addition. I can do multiplication with Python. I can say 2 times 3. No, 2 times 3. And it's going to give me 6, right? Because it's multiplying. I can do subtraction. I can say 6 minus 3, which is 3. Or I can also do division. I can say 12 divided by 4, which gives me 3, right? And these are the 4 basic operations that we use in Python. And they are, pretty useful. You'll use them a lot in the time you're going to be coding, okay? And these are the basic operations you need to know. They're not that difficult. They're easy, simple. Don't need to worry about them. You'll probably be able to Google them as you're coding. Just know that these exist. And so if I want to take this make it a bit more complex, what I can do is I can add variables to it. And the idea of a variable is basically let's say I have this RAM on the computer, the memory, right? The short-term memory. What the variable does is it chooses a small part of this memory, like a small section of it, and it's going to give it a name. And so whenever you call the name, it's going to refer to this place, and inside of it you can put a value. And so basically what you're doing is whenever you refer to the name of it, you're technically referring to the value that is there. And so this value can be anything. It can be a text, it can be a number, it can be whatever you want. And so we've used variables in math before, probably. You've probably used them before as well. And a common name is x, right? You can say x is equal to, and I'm going to say 2, right? When I press enter, it doesn't return anything. But if I call what x is, it says 2, right? That because a section in the memory named x has a value inside of it that's 2, right? And so whenever I call that, you see that 2 is being returned because the value is 2. I can do the same thing with y. I can be like y is equal to, 5. And when I say what y is, it gives me 5. And I can now just produce and do those math operations. And instead of putting the numbers there, I can just put the variables in there, right? I can say, okay, what is x plus y? And x is 2, y is 5, so it should be 7. And when I press enter, it says 7. So it's basically doing the operations for me. Or I can say x times y, and it gives me 10, because 2 times 5 is 10, right? And this is basically how it works. The idea of variables in Python this is the basics of it. If I, let's say, call a variable called z, right? I haven't told the computer what z is before, so if I just ask what z is, the computer is going to be like, hey, this is a name error. I've never seen this variable before in my life. So you gotta, Al, you gotta tell me what z is first. And then when you ask me what z is, I can tell you what it is. So I'm going to define z as being equal to x plus y, which as we saw was 7. And then now if I call z, it's going to give me 7. Right, and now it's stored there. A couple of rules and variables. You can't choose any name, especially if your name starts with a number, that's not going to be invalid. So you can't say 1a is equal to 5, right? Because that's an error. 1a is an invalid way of defining a variable. But you can also choose actual good names. So you can say Ali's age is equal to 18, and then this is going to be a good variable, right? And also another thing that you need to focus on when you're choosing variable names is that they have to be one word. So you have to connect them with underscores or write them in camel case or whatever. You cannot have spaces in between them. It has to be connected. Okay, that is all. And so this component here, which we talked about in the memory can have different values inside of it, right? Here we had a 2, which is a number, and so there is a couple of different types of data that we can store in these components called variables. And in the next video, we're going to look at what these components are, and like we're going to look at different types of the data that we can store in it. We're going to look at the main 4, and then the rest we're going to learn as we progress in the course. All right, I'll see you in the next video then.